Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is April 26th, 2021. I'll call to order the regular board meeting of the Othello School District Board of Directors. We will begin tonight with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome our guests tonight, those of you that are here in the boardroom, those of you that are online. Appreciate you joining us tonight as we conduct our business. Thank you very much. Moving on to item A3, I will entertain a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
Before we do that, I would like to propose a couple of changes to board discussions. I would like to add training dates for policy governance, and let me make sure it hasn't been, that it's not there. And also facility meeting dates, that we discuss both of those. At the end is fine, wherever the order isn't it important.
Okay, there's been a motion been made by Director Stevenson that we approve the agenda with the additions of trainer dates for policy governance and facility meeting date discussion under board member discussion. Can I get a second?
I will second that.
Seconded by Director Johnson. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item B1, public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? Any request? Okay. I'd like to remind the public that there is a venue for public comment. When our meetings are announced, there is a link and some instructions. So if you would like to have public comment, please do so. Moving on to item 2, B2, excuse me, board member discussion. First bullet on there is our ledge report. Director Stevenson.
I'm looking for the right email that had some great information on it. Okay, this part of this comes from WASDA, the Washington State School Directors Association. They sent it on April 23rd, so it was Friday's information. Today is day 103 of 105 of the 2021 legislative session. And so, that was supposed to be the closure of all of the House and the Senate budgets. And so that will come out soon as to all of the details and how those exact budgets affect us and which bills passed and did not pass. Then in terms of federal, so I'm going to read this directly. It's got some very interesting information. President Biden and his team have worked to release federal funding proposals, and we wanted to share with you what we know now regarding impacts to education. We're seeing historic investments in high-poverty schools and a $36.5 billion investment in Title I grants, which is a $20 billion increase from the 2021 enacted level. This investment would provide historically under-resourced schools with the funding needed to deliver high-quality education to all of their students. We're also seeing prioritization of students' physical and mental health needs with $1 billion investment to increase the number of counselors, nurses, and mental health professionals in schools. It's important to note that this is in addition to the resources in the American Rescue Plan. And then in terms of infrastructure, this proposal includes $100 billion to upgrade and build new public schools. There's also a significant focus on improving digital infrastructure, including $100 billion for broadband infrastructure. This plan also proposes $111 billion with the aim to replace 100% of the nation's lead pipes and service lines to reduce lead exposure. So I took some of those interesting numbers, and I wanted to relate it to potential impact to the Othello School District. So if they're giving $100 billion to upgrade and build schools, and we divide that number, which of course is not ever equally divided, but if it was equally divided between 50 states, that's $2 billion per state. We have 295 school districts in our state. And again, if equally divided, which never, that's $6.8 million to the Othello School District as an example. Not literally, but that's as an example. Which is very helpful, but never enough. And then in terms of, I know that the state has recently promised a half of a counselor to every campus across the state. And then I was on another call, either with WASDA or some other school board members across the state that was just a loosely hodgepodge group of us. And in theory, that is 4 counselors with our 8 campuses, counting preschool as its own campus. So 3.5 to 4 counselors for the Othello School District. Some of the things they brought up were, so if we get funded for 1 year, that's awesome, but then what happens the next year? If that's a state funding only for 1 year, what's the longevity of that kind of funding? Number 2, that was just a state thing before I read this federal changes. Number 2, so even whether it's state or federal, how long are they promising to fund that? If we create and fill those positions, then if it's only like a 2-year funding or even a 5-year funding, what do we do after that period of time? Then we would have to absorb that cost or let those people go. Another big issue is across every state, especially across Washington state, there is not enough counselors to go around that are qualified excuse me, and have all of the means necessary to be able to fill that position. Eastern Washington is hit much harder because of the rural areas, I guess I should say, is hit much harder on trying to find quality people. So even if we did have long-term funding that we were assured of, to find those people here is not just here, but in any rural school district is a huge hurdle. And so that brings into another fact of just the difficulty. Yay for the funding, but how long will that truly last from the state and federal levels? And then can we get qualified people here as well? So interesting things that bring up great options, but also bring challenges with all of those kinds of things. And so different interesting things that way. I also did receive an email from Senator Schessler, just because I signed up for his emails. And these are just, he said that they had, this also came, I think, on Friday. Yes, because he said 103 days. So these are local, both Othello and Adams County projects that have already been promised funding. I just wanted to read through, and not all of these are even education related, but I wanted to read some of these. It's a $6.3 billion capital budget, and $55.4 million is will be several projects in the 9th district. So some of those include Adams County Property Evidence Processing Facility in Othello, $900,000. Wheatland Fairgrounds in Ritzville, improvement, including upgraded restroom and shower facilities and American with Disabilities Act compliance, $150,000. Ritzville downtown improvements, $105,000. Othello Water Conservation Systems, $515,000. And then this, let's see, I'm just trying to read ones that are for our county and scanning through a lot. Lions Park Pride Rock Playground in Othello, $500,000. Lions Park Basketball Zone in Othello, $350,000. And then just rural broadband in general is $413 million toward the expansion of reliable internet access. And so here's just details for that dollar amount. $326 million for state broadband office, $60 million to Public Works Board specifically for broadband, $25 million to Community Economic Revitalization Board, or it's also called CURB for those in that world. $2 million for Department of Natural Resources for broadband related projects. So very interesting things that we know do impact us, and that there are people that are definitely fighting for our district and region and county and city. So good things there. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that information, Director Stevenson. Second item in board member discussion, Ludica Elementary School site visit. The draft agenda is attached. Director Johnson had an idea. I think it's a good time to pose that pertains to the visit.
This is for the selection of the students for that visit. The last few visits, we've had really nice dialect with the kids and stuff, but it would be nice to start to turn that visit into a good civic lesson too, possibly.
Can you speak into your mic? I'm sorry.
And maybe that they could pre-write a question that they would like to ask the board, and then they could be selected from those questions, a couple students from every grade level, to come and propose those questions to us.
And Ken, talk to me about it. I love the idea. I don't know what the rest of you think.
In looking at this and after visiting with Wahidas, with their certificated staff in person and not just by Zoom, by person and by Zoom, I should say, I so wish that we could do certificated in person with minimal people on Zoom. And then I started thinking about how could we make that work, because I know that the gym is being used to let students in the building to check their forms and all kinds of stuff. It's just so much better and easier in person while still Zooming those that aren't comfortable being there. And I know that their library could, with the 6 foot, accommodate a few, especially those that are comfortable. But I just want to say, after doing it with Wahidas, I don't want to do it the way we've done it at other campuses, because there was only like 3 or 4 on Zoom and everybody else was in person, even if they had to walk down the bleachers to come to a microphone. It just is, I think that we all feel that's more effective. I'm not saying move all kinds of mountains. I just wish that there was another way that we could do that.
So, is there any way we could maybe talk to Will to see if a shifting to a different room or something to make that possible? Like Jen says, we don't want it to happen, and I know it's late notice and stuff, but if we can research it for a little bit.
For the Ludica visit, the upcoming visit. So are you suggesting that the format that was used at Wahidas would be, that's what you would prefer?
That is definitely the preferred. And I don't know if they could move the student. I don't know.
We've had some initial conversations with Rigo and the IT department about accessing the gymnasium at Ludica, so we'll look more carefully at that and provide an update for the board by the end of the week.
Thank you.
Great. Moving on, annual retreat and admin retreat dates. I know it's all over the place, but I do know that our regular board retreats was always like the second weekend in May. This year, we have a couple retreats that we want to have. I still think the board retreat is something that we do want to go through with, in addition to the admin retreat. So I think we need to get together on a date for ourselves. So then we open it up to the district to survey or whatever it is that they got to do to get dates from administration and directors.
Is ours just a 1 day?
Yes.
Okay.
Where are we doing that at so that we can maybe decide better, like, are we planning out a whole day? Are we planning out half an afternoon? Are we doing that in town? Those little details
I would think that
for
if
our,
it's usually a whole day, I think it will be in town. I think we should do something like you're thinking on the admin there, Pete. Perhaps not the boardroom, but a different location, just so we're more at ease. And but it would be definitely in town. And I think it's up to us if do you think we can cram it into 4 hours or half a day?
so we go over our board self-assessment, which will be probably modified since we have done an assessment
Yes.
with WASDA and gone over
Mhm.
that, or possibly, I don't want to completely not do it,
No.
but the assessment from this community and the staff, and then the supers. Are we doing a super one because it's different this year?
I don't think a super one is.
What does everybody else think on the effectiveness is maybe not the right word.
I mean, we've only had a new superintendent for 2 weeks, so I don't think that would be
Right.
super effective.
Yeah.
So, okay, so not doing a super, and then what else is on the agenda for that meeting?
I know
so
we
that
go
we
through
are,
the calendar.
Yes.
There's even an executive session that pertains to the superintendent that won't take place this year, if I recall.
I
from
think that there
previous
are
years.
parts that are still beneficial. It will be very short or something. I don't know. I still think that we need to include parts of that. My thoughts.
I say we should plan for a day, and if we don't take the entire day, it's better.
So that in that theory, then, if we're planning an entire day, does that mean Saturday?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I can't pull off a Saturday in May. This May-cember for me. Like it's, my calendar is a nightmare. I could maybe pull off a weekday in May, but I'm out of town, or my kids have double headers, or every weekend in May I'm swamped.
So we plan like 5:30 to 10 potentially, and we just see what happens. We could always end up doing part 2 if needed.
5:30 to 10 at night?
Yes. Since she said no Saturdays, I'm going to the next best option. Sunday's not negotiable
No.
for me, sorry.
What's the rest of the board think?
Would it be easier on a noon to 5?
I'm in for that.
Depending on the day, that's a potential. Sharon?
I might be able to work a noon to 5. I just have to get some babysitting to help me out since I'm babysitting. But yeah, I mean,
Is there a day of the week then if we're you said, everybody said noon to 5, right?
Yeah.
And this is typically a not student rep forced attendance.
So I think 12 to 5.
Okay?
And whose idea is this, by the way? Who did this? These calendars?
I doubt that it's us. I
Thank
think
you.
you're looking over there.
Thank you. I just didn't know if somebody suggested this. Thank you, Bessie. This is very helpful. Pete, do we have an estimate, or do we have an idea of the admin? Any dates? Have they been tossed around or anything? Okay.
Is June too late to do our admin meeting?
Because we're throwing a lot of stuff in May.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be the most realistic. Okay, are we just looking for dates that we're just throwing out there?
I'm looking for a date in May, a 12 to 5, a weekday.
What about Thursday, the 20th?
I think you're busy that day, Jen. Just kidding, I am, but I'm embarrassed to say that. I'll be out of town.
Okay, Lindsay, what days are you available from 12 to 5? Maybe we
Hide
should just
me.
start there.
Okay. How about May 13th? Anybody else, May 13th?
I don't carry my calendar with me. It's at home. Maybe I guess I'll start bringing it. Seemed like that was.
I'll make it work, the 13th, if that's what we got to do.
That'll work for me.
Okay.
Could you text someone?
Nobody's at my house.
Oh, that doesn't work
It's
then.
farm time, remember?
Isn't it always farm time? You're right.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I mean, I'll go home and I think.
Okay,
I'll
so
let
we'll
you know as soon as I
tentatively,
can.
we'll set the 13th from 12 to 5 as a tentative date. And if we got to do a separate session, we'll decide then what date that will be. And Sharon, if you can just let me know tonight
I'll
if,
let you know
if
as soon
we
as I
need to
can.
change that, we'll communicate with the rest of the board to see what date works.
But along with that meeting, there's those surveys that have to be
Sent out, yeah.
sent out. Is that going to be ample time to get surveys out and then gather the data from them?
You expect to use the same survey that you used last year? Yeah, we'll be able to do that.
All right, so that means tentative, 5/13, Pete, for our board retreat. You can get the wheels going on the admin one and just let us know, and we'll see what fits Lindsay's calendar. Okay, moving on. Scootney Elementary, when should we have them present?
Should we just plan the admin retreat? I mean, even if we plan it into June,
Well, he
Right
had
now?
to- I think you got to ask, don't you? Or do you
could we
have
come
to-
up with 2 or 3 dates?
You want to come over with 2 or 3 now? I think that would be helpful.
Yes,
Yep.
instead of the weird back and forth. Let's just start the 4th
Okay.
part. How long? Let's start with how long are we thinking for that?
Well, we had an 8 to 3 agenda planned.
What are your Saturdays in June looking like, everyone?
But it could be after the school year.
What about like June 22nd? It's a Tuesday. Are you guys still, you guys are still working the month of June?
Yes.
So could it be on a work day or does it need to be on a Saturday?
That could absolutely be June 22nd, if that worked out for the board.
Do we want to give a second option too? When does summer school or academy or whatever we're calling that now, when does that start? Do we have a date for that?
Yeah, I believe we start the 21st.
Is that too much that we're starting, that we're going to do that very next day? Or is that better to start after instead of a few days
It's better than
before?
starting the 21st, so, but we might have some folks in and out that day, but that would be okay.
If we wanted to push it to the 29th, I could do the 29th too. I could do the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, or the 29th, 30th, or in July 1st.
I'll start with those 3 dates, the week of the 21st, so the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. And I'll also include the 29th. And I'll reach out to the association and find a date that works.
Okay, perfect.
Could I just step back to the board retreat for a moment?
Mhm.
And I noticed that at the bottom of that sheet that there's a comment about the governance training. And I'm wondering if it might be appropriate to suggest that perhaps if the governance training occurred before the retreat, it might inform what happens at the retreat.
Do we just want to jump to his dates now?
Yeah. What does May 4th won't work, JS training? What's JS training?
Jen Stevenson?
That's me. I actually, let me look at, I think that was a different month. Oh, I'm back in June now. Oh, I was going to take the regional meeting for WASDA on the 4th, but I could change that to another day. We're already doing a Ludicaga site visit that morning on the 4th. So I could change the 6 p.m. meeting on the 4th. Okay, so let me look at what Rick Maloney sent. I need to find a better way to organize this. Okay. Rick Maloney said, I'm available Saturday morning, May 1st or 8th. Saturdays after the 8th are not yet cleared for let's see. I am available most evenings, but Mondays and Wednesdays are more difficult. His wife does uses the Wi-Fi at home, and so that's harder for him to do a training on the same time she's doing a training.
How long will our training be with him?
3,
3?
right, is what he said, is what he suggested. He did say April 27th, 29th, 30th, May 4th, 6th, or 11th. I mean, we're talking like that starts tomorrow.
I like you guys and all, but man,
Preach, Mike. I hear you.
so could we change it to the 4th? I mean, would the 4th work? It's a Tuesday.
So you want to be at Ludicaga at 7:30 in the morning and then be together for another 3 hours that evening?
I
don't.
cannot.
Sharon's saying no. so-
Okay.
I'm not gonna do that.
Totally fine with that.
Sorry.
It is a bit much. Okay, so he said, what about the 6th or the 11th? I could make either of those work.
I'd rather the 6th. That gives us time to disseminate the information. If the topic will be discussed on the 13th, instead of doing it 2 days before and maybe making a ill-informed decision or a rash one.
Does the 6th work for you?
I'll make it work.
Is that at 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
I
think
guess I
we
don't know.
discussed time. Let's see.
I would prefer 6 so I could still go to my daughter's soccer game, but I'll do whatever works.
You mean as opposed to 7?
No, as opposed to 5. Her game
Oh.
is from 5 to 6.
Yeah, 5 would be difficult.
If it's 3 hours long, I guess whenever.
6
Yes,
on the 6th.
on the 6th. You'll reach out to try to confirm that, Jen?
I will do that right now, but I think he's also in his board meeting.
So that means we're canceling the 4th WASDA training meeting.
No, that's just for me. The regional
Oh.
meetings are,
Yeah.
there's like 11 of them, and that was the date that I grabbed that worked for me at that time.
Okay.
But, so,
Okay. So, thanks for the observation, Pete. That was a good call there.
Hey, Mike, while we're on our calendar,
I think we're going to be there for a while.
so I asked for the scheduling to be added to the calendar. To just say which I have already said, like, I have really a lot going on. I mean, I have 3 kids that are playing 2 different sports, and it's just a crazy time where things have opened back up, plus it's spring and it's a very busy time. I know for my business, and I'm assuming for other people's businesses, that this is just a really crazy time. So I definitely don't want to portray that my time is more important than anyone else's. I'm not. I understand everybody's busy. I do have a problem with our site visit schedule, in that my husband leaves at 5 in the morning, and my kids don't go to school until noon. And so every time we do a site visit in the morning, my kids are either putting themselves on the bus, and they're too young to do that. My daughter ends up wearing like a pajama shirt and leggings with shorts, and her hair hasn't been brushed. It's not a good look. Anyway, they're just too young. Then they don't eat, and anyway. So I'm struggling with my scheduling for our site visits and making that work in my family at this season. And so I either have to say I can't make it, or is it possible at all for us to do afternoon site visits? If it's not, that's totally okay. I understand, like, everybody has schedules they have to work around. This is just a time where I have to say, I can do anything I want, but I can't do everything I want. And so I'm just really trying to set some boundaries in my life for my children and what I can accomplish.
Another perspective on just the intensity of our schedule right now is all of our site visits are for AM, and that means we're only seeing students that live in town. I know that there are some exceptions to every rule. And the demeanor and often the population numbers are different in the afternoon. Although it would wreak havoc on my work schedule, I'm already missing work for part of that time anyways. I would like us to do some afternoon visits as well. It changes. I mean, even at the middle school, I went like a week later to see what afternoon was like, and it was dramatically different.
I like the ideal of an afternoon, and I think that would be great, but I think the only problem it would cause is with the staffing, being able to talk to them.
We could potentially see the teachers after, we're seeing them before school, when they're still scheduled. We could see them potentially after, when they're still scheduled, and they are making modifications for us to see PSE staff anyways, because they're already scheduled. And so, yes, it changes everything, but sometimes it's easier to stay later than to come early to talk to us. I'm open to at least trying one and then seeing how it goes. I don't know.
How many more do we have left this year?
2.
So we have Ludica, and who's the?
Hiawatha.
Okay. Well, seeing as how this is on Tuesday, I don't know that we want to modify Tuesdays,
No.
and we'll have a discussion for the next one. I just think it's around the corner, and it'd be too much juggling of schedules and agendas to try to accommodate this one. Lindsay, I commend you for what you're saying, for the decisions you're making. I understand. But I think for this one, we leave it as is, and we have the discussion for the Hiawatha one, see what we can do there, see if we can't accommodate that.
That works for me.
You could potentially zoom in for part of it. It's not anywhere near the same, but
Okay. That could work.
because many people will be zooming in.
Yeah.
Okay? That leaves us with asking when we have Scootney present.
Is there a time that's open that we don't already have another campus presenting before the end of the year? Or do we have someone presenting at every meeting?
Well, they present after the visit, so if we followed what we've been doing.
Right. But is there currently an open board meeting that doesn't have a site presenting.
I don't see one until
Not-
June,
Yeah,
not till like June 14th.
Okay,
So do we double up or wait till June 14th?
I personally myself, I wouldn't like the double up. But what we could do is have Scootney do next if they're ready, and have Hiawatha do.
and then so you're skipping Ludicaga and then skipping Hiawatha one, what, are you saying double?
No, I'm saying not double. I'm saying Ludicaga's turn would be the 10th. Yeah, so the 10th would be Scootney. 24th would be Ludicaga. And Hiawatha would have to be till the 14th.
the 14th.
I think that's better than pushing Scootney back to the 14th, because that's just
Yes.
a really long time between when we saw them and having them present.
Is it better to just double them up, Scootney somewhere else? At that point, I would rather double them up instead of pushing everyone back.
I like that schedule that you just brought up. Bring Scootney on the 10th, 24th, and 14th. I
Okay.
don't want the two schools to be
Yeah.
presenting at the same time, because all of our schools are different. They're
Yeah.
very uniquely different, and I want them to stay that way.
I don't want to have a double one, but could we just ask Sandy and Justin, that if that was your position, having a double, would you be uncomfortable? Oh. Okay, okay. And I wouldn't want to do anything on any other school.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty hard.
I think we just push them back like I just mentioned. I think that
As
would
long
work.
as that's
I'm
okay
fine
with
with
If it works
Hiawatha
for
to
them,
be
of
into
course.
Yeah.
June.
If we can notify them, Pete, that that's what we're going to do. Thank you. Property bid update. Is that something someone's got a presentation prepared for, or is someone requesting that there's an update, or?
I requested. I just want to know, what is the timeline? Do you need a board member present?
Wasn't it
Details.
Friday?
Say again?
Wasn't it last Friday?
Yeah, the bids closed on Friday, I believe, at 5 PM, and we did receive multiple bids.
Oh, yay.
They're sealed, and so I think tonight we're going to discuss some of the next steps in the executive session about where we're at in the process, and so
Oh,
I think
cool.
we'll get some clarity there, but that's where we're at right now.
Have they already been opened?
They have not.
Okay, I think scheduling was your bit, Lindsay, and I think we've kind of talked about that. Student rep selection process and dates. Elise, you're going to be with us throughout this year, at least through January, if I'm not mistaken. I thought that's what it was.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, yeah.
I think I'm done in July,
June, something, yeah.
but I was talking with Lindsay about running again, but I don't.
Okay, that means we have 2 reps to replace then?
Potentially, yes.
we
So
need-
I think that we had discussed that Elise could run again, but that doesn't mean that she's an instant shoo-in. She would still be running against other people that, running is not the right word. Applying, thank you, against others also in the same boat as her. So yes, potentially picking 2.
or we,
Elise might be one of them.
or we can have a discussion to ask Elise to serve another half a year.
I have a question. Does running start affect if student reps can be student reps?
I don't see why it should.
Just checking.
Agree. I don't see why not. Others?
Okay, so I think another item for our board agenda would be this discussion and exactly how we're going to handle it, unless we're ready to say tonight, set a date, or do
okay.
we decide
Discussion where and when? Are you talking like at our board
at
meeting?
a board retreat?
Okay.
Or do we decide tonight that we're replacing two? Elise is totally okay to run again. Do we politely ask for an extension on her behalf? And in that way, we're maybe taking half a year from her, which isn't the intent.
Okay. The intent, when it was changed, was 1 year. Elise, have you already served 1.5 years?
I don't know.
In July, it will have been 1.5 years.
Sure.
And yes, because COVID changed everything and we didn't have students
yeah.
in the buildings for us to really be able to do it. And we just said, keep going. Because you were supposed to be done in December, right? The end of December. And so that would already mean that she's 2
Oh.
years, which is fine. But, and our intent was to change them all to 1 year, so we'll have had Lauren for 1.5 years and Elise for 2.
I
So,
would just prefer to not do 2 at the same time. Like, at least if we could keep Elise until December, if she's willing to stay, which it sounds like she is, then she could reapply in December, but she could at least help mentor our new student rep from now or whenever they come in through December.
I think that that is a good idea because I know when I came in, I didn't really get that mentorship because Taylor was already leaving. So I think we definitely need training for
Yeah, I
our
think
new
we need
student
to
reps.
offset our student reps so that
Right.
we don't have 2 new people coming in at the same time.
and then that would continually create an offset. That was the intent, why we
Yeah.
created it in the first place. I think that you're right about that. And why postpone another discussion?
Yeah.
So we get to the high school and start announcing so we can get applicants.
Yep.
Have you guys
And-
talked to anybody about it to begin with?
We haven't talked. I haven't.
I have not either.
But we can start putting it in the morning announcements and
We will be.
start in the leadership class. I'm in leadership.
Perfect.
I think we can be as effective as possible because the high school communication is where we've been struggling the most. So we'll try.
I know also your intent was to create a committee,
Yeah.
and I'm guessing that that hasn't happened because of the
Nope.
communication issue. And that was the intent, to create like a more informed candidate pool.
We wanted more of like a student panel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just like I was talking with the student reps earlier, their springtime is also crazy. I mean, they're back to school, they're in sports, Lauren's trying to graduate, like, they just have a ton of stuff going on. And so spring is just a really busy season for everybody, I think. And especially because are just getting back opened, it's even more crazy times. So if you guys can start recruiting people, that would be really great, and then we can set a time to,
But I think we need to be very clear about, we want a current freshman, sophomore, not a junior, because their senior year is not the most effective for having someone on. So,
It would be nice if we could have a candidate pool put together for a board retreat on the 13th to,
for us
For-
to do interviews there, is that what you're saying?
no, we could, at that time, select the candidates that we want to interview. And maybe on the 24th at our regular board meeting, maybe 1 hour before, do interviews really quick and then have the formal selection during the meeting.
Do you think that that's a reasonable timeline?
Yeah. Are we talking about incoming freshmen or freshmen already this year?
Current freshman?
Okay.
You said the 13th, right?
in order for us to even look at them at that date, they would need to be turned in by like the 10th or 11th. Is that reasonable? I mean,
It's
that's like
about
2 weeks away, which is super short.
Even if we weren't able to do the selection on the 13th, I think last time we interviewed everyone who applied, because there was a whopping
Very
3.
Yep.
So even if we just set the 24th as our interview date, that might help us get some more people if we extended that deadline past the 13th
I agree.
and did interviews at 6 PM. Unless we get like 20 people to apply, then we can revisit
And we'll
it,
know
but-
by then, I
Yeah.
mean, as they're coming in. So if you can let them know that we need those back by the 24th,
No.
No.
21st
21st, to review the
21st.
24th.
is what I'm thinking. Due on the 21st.
Interviews on the 24th at 6.
And there is an application process that will ultimately go to the superintendent's office. And it would be great if we could get you some forms already printed and then even put it in.
I was gonna say, put it like in the counseling office
Yes.
and tell them like, if you're interested, go
Right,
see. blah, blah, blah.
also have it in advisory.
Yeah, I don't know what it's gonna take, but I'm going to get them to the advisories, even if I have to take them myself.
That's what I'm looking for, that kind of commitment.
Yeah, because communication at the high school is not working right now, so.
Okay, I think that we also need to point out Desert Oasis is
Mhm.
also an option.
Could we make time to go talk to them?
If you reached out to Mr. Tovar, I'm sure he would love it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I think we've discussed the training date for policy governance. Facility meeting. Potential date.
I'm sitting here looking, Yessie, I'm really happy that you got us these calendars, but we've almost filled in all the blanks.
Seriously.
Yeah.
What about if we did it May 10th instead of that book study before the
Right.
regular board meeting? Let's just cross that out and make that be the
Yes.
facilities meeting.
Facility.
Does that work for the district office? Which means Greg.
Greg gives a thumbs up for that. So the 10th
mean,
at
that's-
6 PM.
Okay, then we're also on the 14th, removing the book study on June 14th. Because we're postponing the book study.
Correct.
1 hour less. We're just gonna fill it in later. Since it's not actually on the agenda, but since we're doing scheduling and looking at our calendars, do we need to talk about graduations and who's attending what?
Might as well, now that we know
Right.
what day they are. What days they are.
Do we need representation from the board at MMS? Pete, do you know? For promotion?
MMS is running their promotion over 3 days to give enough families the opportunity to come in. They're doing some individualized pictures, so it would be a 3-day commitment. So based on what we've seen around the calendars right now, I'm not sure that that's going to fit with you all.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm wide open.
So could we get one of us there each of the days at MMS?
What would be the
Six-
time?
It's throughout the day.
Okay, how about this for McFarland? Can you email us dates and times, and we can just fill in and email back, hey, I could do this one, I could do this one, whatever works for us. And if they have one, great. If they don't, I'm sure they can just figure it out. Just skip that section. Hopefully that would work. And if it doesn't, according to that admin, if they want that to happen, then great. I want to do Desert Oasis.
Okay.
I could
Someone
do-
else is welcome to join me, but my son is there, and I've already told him it's going to be embarrassing.
I could do high school this year.
I'll do the high school as well.
Do you need everybody else for the high school, Pete, like last year?
I was going to give an update on the superintendent.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, it'd be great if everybody's there, but it's still some conversation about how it's going to flow.
Okay. I mean, I could do that too.
We're Zooming this also, right?
I could
Meeting
do-
right now? Okay.
I could do
Yes.
one of the McFarlands, but I don't think I can do 3 in a row.
Same, but I could do one of the days at McFarland.
I have a son there too, so I would be happy to embarrass him as well.
I think once you get this time speech, we'll fill in the blanks.
We'll put together a shared calendar and share that with the board, fill in those times for McFarland specifically, and then for OHS, I can give the update now if that seems
Sure.
appropriate. But at the high school, specifically Othello High School, the initial conversation had been around 3 ceremonies, trying to get kids and their families enough tickets. But on April 16th, Governor Inslee put out new guidance around county fairs and special events. Graduation falls under special events. And so that gave us some additional flexibility. And I know Mr. Schwartz and the team were talking with seniors and with some of their families about perhaps moving to a less restrictive experience. And it might even be just one ceremony. So he was getting feedback from the students. They're putting together a plan that he shared with me this afternoon that we will share with the Department of Health. So it might be more traditional in a sense that based on the acreage available at Husky Stadium, we could have a large number of folks out there that are socially distanced, and if masks are still required at that point, participating in that way. It wouldn't be the 2,000 or 3,000 that we've typically had, but certainly it would be very different than last year. So confirming what it's going to flow and look like. Really what's important next for the county and for the community is May 2nd when they reassess whether or not we're going to stay in phase 2. The indicators right now that we will continue to be in phase 2 if we move, or in phase 3, if we move back to phase 2, that really slows down the options and it'll be more of a drive-through experience perhaps.
I didn't know that was happening. Dang it.
Okay, so to be determined on those, but we have some commitments for DOHS and the high school.
More than one person could do Desert Oasis. I mean, more people can help me embarrass my son, that's fine.
Okay. We'll look at our calendars, and then I'm sure if we just want to go be a part of the festivity, that's okay too, even if we're not presenting diplomas. I think that actually would be a good thing if we could. Okay, moving on to B3, student representative reports.
One second.
I'm ready. Do you want me to go first? Okay. So as of now, leadership is working on the first virtual assembly that will be shared by both AM and PM kids. Us seniors got our cap and gowns today, and the admin is organizing a cap decorating night for us seniors since we get to decorate them. And they are planning what the seniors will do for their last day of school.
Okay, I have a report from, I think, 4 of the schools. So MMS has started sports, and they're in full swing. I think they're starting games this week. Scootney participated in Earth Day activities, such as cleaning up the school grounds and learning about their planet. They also film a star spotlight video that is on Facebook. I think they post it once a week. Scootney also is making the most of their days and maximizing their learning heading into May. At the preschool, they're continuing kinder registration and also prepping for preschool registration. They're working on professional development with their staff around divergent thinking, sexism, and creativity. They also have started serving breakfast and lunch daily to their kiddos, and they also participated in STEM and Earth Day activities. They planted flowers, talked about life cycles, collected garbage, they grew worms in compost, and some more activities. At DOHS, they had a Spirit Week last week, and they had some student participation. They celebrated Mrs. Perneta for Administrative Professional Day. They celebrated Earth Day by potting flowers in the front of their building, and I think they said some of their students have requested more, so they're working on that. They're getting ready for their final round of STAR assessments. Miss Mendoza is going to attend a training to offer credit next school year for students taking courses in their Tier 2 program. They're also finishing their PBL project of suspension bridges with over 90% student participation. And that's all I have unless you guys have questions.
I would like to know how preschool breakfast and lunch is going.
Yep, there's your answer.
Can we pass a mic down to, I'm sorry, just because of Zoom.
So they're doing the same thing as the other schools where they get, at the end of the day, they get a bag that has lunch and breakfast. And so we just started that last week and it's going great.
Okay.
The kids put their backpacks on the front of them and they say they're their lunch bellies. Anyway, it's pretty cute.
All right, well, appreciate you guys bringing us that information. Moving on to item C1, I will entertain a motion for required approvals.
I will make that motion.
I will second. I have some questions after we approve them.
There's been a motion to approve required approvals. I'm a little confused with your second.
I'm fine with approving them, and then I want some details afterwards. I already know the answers, and so I'm comfortable. I can ask the questions now.
I'd rather the questions asked before we
Okay.
approve something.
All right. So this is accounts payable questions. Let's start with elevation education for $24,000. What is that for?
That is a subscription for a software program that it's being paid out of our Title III grant.
Okay, great. So I'm sorry, what does Title III cover? I know that might not be
It's kind of like it's from the federal bilingual program.
okay, great. And then so there was the 24,000 for elevation. Oh, I see 2 L's in elevation. Oh, tricky. I didn't catch that. I just thought it was spelled wrong before. Now that I understand Title III a little bit better. And then Office Depot for $43,000.
That is for paper order for our paper supply for our district.
How much paper is $43,000 worth?
2 truckloads. The last time we ordered paper was November of 2018.
So are you hoping this is another 3 years?
It's kind
2
of
and a
hard
half?
to gauge it because
Right.
of the whole, Chromebook, 1-to-1 and stuff like that, but we're hoping for at least 1.5 years.
Okay. Where do you house 2 truckloads full of paper?
In somewhere where maintenance keeps it. We made sure
Greg
to
slipped
ask
out
Orland.
conveniently.
We asked Orland if they had the room, and they did.
Okay, great, awesome. And then under capital projects, I know there's only like 2 on it this time. $16,000. Oh, right there. $16,000 for Slacks Custom Landscapes. What is that?
That is for a chain link fence for a preschool.
Awesome. So we finally have a full chain link all around for safety purposes to safely
Correct.
confine. Confine's probably not the right word.
Contain.
Contain. That's a much better word. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, there's been a motion made by Director Johnson to approve required approvals, seconded by Director Stevenson. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item C2. We held a special meeting where we informed the public of our district plan of reapportionment of directors as districts. We need the official approval.
I move we approve the plan reapportionment.
Okay. Motion's been made by Director Stevenson to approve the plan of reapportionment of directors' districts. Can I get a second?
I will second.
Seconded by Director Prowse. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item C3, superintendent informational items. Do we have any questions for Pete?
Yes. Under financials, if we can go to page 5. So I know that we have lots of different income revenue sources. Yes, thank you for making that much larger. All right. If you can go over to the percentage, I'm not sure. Is this page 5? Slide over there. Yeah, okay, let's go. I think that's 4. Go down to the next page, I think. This doesn't get to say what page we're on.
I think your question was on the page above.
Okay. Yes, you're right. Okay, so under revenues, the 8,000 category, this is, what's the title on the top of this page?
Other agencies and associates.
General fund. So this is in the general fund, other agencies and associations, annual budget and revised is $15,000, but we have $34,656, which I know is only like less than $20,000 difference, but it's 231%. So I wanted to know, what is that revenue?
So the items that we have received in some of the 8,000 revenue resources are, we did get a grant of $18,380, and that's our college-ready grant that the high school uses for one of their programs that they run.
And so that was not budgeted originally? I mean, yay. We'll take it, of course. I just want to confirm.
I can check on that. I'm not
Okay.
100% sure what.
All right. Okay. And I know that that's actual for the year, but not for this month. Okay, let's go to the next page. So this one is capital projects, and under revenues, 2,000 local support non-tax. Also, this percentage is over 200%. In terms of our annual budget, this is like pennies, but when I see percentages off that high, and we would love these every year all the time. Revenue is much higher than expected, as opposed to expenditures. But what is the change? And this one was actual for the month.
That is for lease payments of one of our schools, one of our ECAP program leases.
Okay, and I know that you didn't create you didn't prepare that budget originally. Was that just not stuck in, and that you might not have the answer to this? Did we not plan on that income originally?
Maybe I don't know if the lease had been received in time.
I see. Okay.
I don't know when the lease for the ECAP usually gets signed.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So that
that could have been the.
explains a little bit of that,
Explain.
lease payments. Okay. Great. Thank you. Those are all of my questions on the financials.
Okay, Pete, will you speak to the other item?
I'll jump into the end-of-year celebrations and the facilities update prior to moving on to the Chromebook. Is that okay? All right. We talked briefly about the secondary graduations with DOHS and OHS, so I'll quickly bounce over that. I do want to talk about prom and sort of a senior celebration activity that they're working on at Othello High School. It's currently scheduled for May 22nd. They're taking on the theme of a dinner and a show. So the senior class advisor, Vanessa Billman, and a teacher and a parent of a senior, Angela Kutsk, are working really hard with a group of seniors to put together a fun event for those kids, trying to preserve as many opportunities for the traditional end-of-year celebrations that are common in American high schools. And so they're working really hard to put that event together, and excited about creating that opportunity for our seniors. At the other end of the system, our kinder graduation is always a popular event as well. So each site is individually planning for using some of the strategies they had last year with the drive-through kinder graduations, creating photo opportunities and those kinds of moments for our kids on the kinder side. So lots of celebrations coming up here in the springtime. Related to facilities, I do want to share 3 items in particular. One is around the Ludica Roof. I know there was some discussion for the last several months about that project. I wanted to let you know that Greg provided an update that there's been a challenge in securing quotes for that project for 2 reasons. One is that it's a busy industry, and so folks aren't as hungry for the work. There's lots of projects going on. And also, he indicated that many of the folks were suggesting that they needed specs for that work, and that would require an investment from the district to put together the specs required for the scope of the work. It's very unlikely that that project would occur before the summer of 2022, even if we were able to find someone that could quote it immediately. The second item is a food service report that we received from Phil Crocker and his group, Teeter Crocker. We have the report, it's done, it's in hand, and what we're asking for in the third item here is this opportunity to develop a 5 to 10 year long-term facility plan. I know that's been a conversation that's gone on for several board meetings, and we really feel like we're in a position to roll the information that he provided from the sort of one area, which is the food service report. We need that level of detail about our whole system. And so rather than roll out that food service report and say, hey, what do we want to do around this? It really feels more appropriate to include it into a more comprehensive report. So what we'd like to do moving forward is to, perhaps at the next board meeting, I'll coordinate with Greg and lay out a timeline for the board about here's what our expectations are about really getting the facility project moving, really getting a deep dive into what we need for facilities across the system.
So, since we just planned on May 10th having a facility meeting at 6 p.m. before, are you saying you'll present all of that at that time, which is our next board meeting? Or you want to do that at a regular meeting?
Yeah, I think on May 10th, at a minimum, we would be prepared with a timeline, with an understanding of here's the scope of the work, here's what we think we need to do, and certainly the bones of the idea, the skeleton of the outline are already there in my conversations with Greg. He has a deep understanding of his perspective of what the buildings are, and perhaps the kind of external support we might need to take a really good look at how do we finance some of these projects, what's the timing of it. This is certainly something that is a 10-year project. It's not an overnight deal, and the planning will be really important in setting all that up. But he's been thinking about this for quite a long time, so I think we're ready to present a timeline to the board.
So are you, without fully proposing it, are you suggesting an outside, similar to the Teeter Crocker for the food services for the entire district? Is that what you're sort of not fully asking for?
Yeah, so I think if the board will recall, at least those who were on the board when we were initiating the conversations around K-8, we actually partnered with Teeter Crocker, and they came in and gave a facilities assessment for a move that direction, a functional use assessment of all our facilities. It was a really good project and good work that they did for us, which is why we engaged in the food service project with them. So an entity like that, depending on the scope of the work and whether or not we'd have to go out for bids or quotes about support around that work, it's something that we would want to look at. And perhaps one of the first steps is going back to that report. And I know that's something that Greg has done recently to say, does it still make sense? Not from there haven't been dramatic changes to the buildings, but if the design and the instructional use has changed and it's not going to be K-8, that report would certainly have to be adjusted. More importantly, understanding what resources are available to push these projects through, when do bonds go off, what's our debt capacity, all those questions that are not the sort of details of the facility, but are equally important to determine how we can finance those projects. We will definitely need some support from the outside to think through that.
Thank you for that clarification.
No, and if you're looking for the go-ahead, I say start doing it. Do you agree? That he continue
Yes.
with his,
I agree 100%. I love it. I would clap if it was appropriate because I love it.
You can clap, I think it's appropriate. Details that I would like to know, how long would the proposed that take? Because I know that the food services took much longer than was anticipated. And like they would help us through the entire process, or just give us here's a whole lump sum of information and then we just move forward, or we decide if we want them to like hold our hand through a process after. I mean, like, I guess I want to know, before I say yes, what exactly are you asking? And I'm not sure you're ready to fully ask it, because it sounded like you're like, well, we want to wait until the 10th. Because if that's what we're asking and proving now, then we don't need to meet on the 10th.
Yeah, so the vision of it is to take all the pieces that already exist. There was a facility committee. There was a committee that looked at a transition to K-8. There have been conversations about piecemealing these capital projects. There are lots of conversations that have gone on over the last several years. What we would like to do is to take all that information, all those conversations, and say, here's what we have already. Is it enough to really put together a coherent plan? If it is, we're ready to get to work. If it's not, if we lay it next to the information that Teeter Crocker provided about food service, and we say, no, that's the level of detail we need, then it will be, I think, an operational decision to say, we're going to partner with those folks to get the work done that the board recommended. So I think all we'd be coming back to ask for really would be the green light to push forward with the work. And we'll define what that work looks like and what it might cost the district to go through that process. So it really is taking the pieces that are out there, bringing them together in some coherent way to determine the most appropriate next steps.
Which is something that I feel like, just in my time on the board, I have been missing from the district, is knowing exactly what the district wants. Like what makes sense moving forward for facilities and things like that. It's just, we've been just kind of winging it, it has felt like. So I love that. Thank you.
okay.
There's one additional item on there around a Chromebook insurance proposal, and so it's there for the board to review, and Rigo's also here. He certainly has the expertise and led a committee in considering some of those items for our system.
So Jen, I know you had some specific questions. Did this address the need or the ask, or?
So I was the board member on this committee, and can we pull up the insurance proposal? I'm sorry. So facilities on the 10th. Are we then meeting, or are we not meeting if we just said go ahead with getting Teeter Crocker?
It's information. Information will be brought to us. It's not, here's what we're going to do, here's the plan for the next 10 years. I don't think that's the intent, right?
Correct. The intent is not to say we're going to partner with anyone yet. The intent, what I wanted to share was, we made an investment. We have this detailed report on food service, but like this whole concept about winging it, we don't want to jump into some food service projects that don't make sense for a more comprehensive 10-year plan. So what we want to do is determine, where does that piece of food service, where does that fit into a more detailed plan? So that report now doesn't sit on a shelf for a couple of years while we decide what to do moving forward.
So I understand the purpose of the report, a new report, more detailed. Totally get that. Are we meeting on the 10th or not? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Yes.
Yes.
To see that report that currently exists but not do anything with it? Why are we meeting on the 10th?
My understanding on the 10th is that we would come to you with those pieces that we've talked about, with what we think is a reasonable timeline to say, here are some next steps, here's the supports we might need, and then get some direction from the board to say, that's going to require an investment to have folks come in and help us assess our facilities. We think the plan seems reasonable, timely, and appropriate. Go ahead and get going. So really today is to let you know, we're prepared to do that work, to come back on the 10th with the concepts and the ideas, and then on the 10th, I think get some direction from the board.
Okay, it just felt like, sorry, until I got that answer, we were just meeting to meet. We don't want to do that anymore. So now I have clarification and understanding. Thank you. Instead of just to meet to see the report on the 10th that we're not going to be doing anything about, to be moving forward.
No,
Okay.
I thought it was pretty clear.
Well, I'm very detail oriented and I
Very good.
needed all
No.
those different little steps all worked through. Thank you. Sorry,
Perfect.
Rigo. Okay. Can we, let's see, let's go down to a little bit further down the page on this. So for a lost or destroyed Chromebook, it's $300. For a case, it's $25. And then the parts costs for a 3-year comparison, even though our current school year is not yet over.
Correct.
And then also the insurance purposes, if you can go to the top of the next page. Our insurance purchases have increased, and since COVID affected all of these things and the usages and all of those kinds of details, I just wanted to see this in, the district put this out, and I thought it was great to be able to see these details, but also that the one-to-one initiative of every student having a Chromebook comes completely from our levy. The funding, I'm sorry, not completely. Local people and local taxpayers are paying a portion of this. Some of this funding comes from federal and state money as well, I think. Okay, because there's grants and other things and stuff. But to make sure that we're fiscally being responsible for the outlay of local taxpayer money.
Okay, so this committee was formed because there was the opinion that families that had several students were paying more if there was a way to help those families, things of that nature. And the recommendation at the bottom of the page there is what we need to approve tonight? Is that where we're at? Did that change? I mean, did the insurance fee go up or down?
No,
Or?
so the insurance fee at the bottom is basically saying it's going to stay the same. However, though we did take into consideration the possibilities of families out there that couldn't afford if they had multiple students in there. So what we are suggesting is giving now an option to families that will have at least 3 or more kids in the district to have a payment plan. So that way they're not having to decide whether they want to put food on the table or buy Chromebook insurance. Now they have the option to, like, if I have 3 kids, that's $60. I can pay $30 now, $30 next month, and not, be able to now provide for their kids on the at the dinner table. So that's what we're recommending for those families that have multiple ones and are on hard times, is to give them this option. And stuff. And we're also recommending for those that didn't want to pay the fee, is a $15 labor cost for my staff to continue fixing them. This way, those that pay for the insurance are getting rewarded for paying for the insurance. If you scroll back up to the prices of what we did up there, you can see that $20 is minimal compared to what prices that the district is paying for to replace these parts. I think the cheapest one on there is probably $10, and that's for like a Wi-Fi card on a specific model. So I mean, if you didn't buy the insurance and you had to replace a Wi-Fi card plus the $15 labor, now you're already out $5 extra. If you were paid the $20 coverage, then you're basically covered for even the $165 for a screen that needs to be replaced. So.
Do we need to approve this? To me, this seems operational, so I hope.
That's what I was just thinking.
Okay.
It's more
No, it's-
operational and-
It was more information, letting us
Yeah,
know
yeah.
what the committee came up with, and,
Right, it doesn't ask for us to
Very good.
approve it or anything like that.
okay. All right, well, I appreciate the time put in by the committee, appreciate the information, and just so, come registration, we're clear, the expectation, parents don't have any surprises, and they know exactly what they're getting into or not getting into if they choose not to buy the insurance. Thank you, Rigo, and committee, Jen, for participating. Moving on to item C4, pre-approved presentation to the board from, I believe tonight we have Wahidas here.
Yep, we're excited to have Principal Sandy Anderson, Assistant Principal Justin Johnson, Amy Palmore, and Kayla Spohr here tonight representing Wahidas, and they'll take the next 10 or 15 minutes to share with you part of their story.
There we go. Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to share some more of us, and we really appreciate the visit last Friday. It was a good time for us. Staff members commented on the visit as well, and so we just appreciate you coming into our building. So tonight we'd just like to share a little bit more of our journey. I know that we met with you in January and kind of gave you an update on where we were at in the year. And could you go to the next slide, please? We shared with you kind of this process of where we started, and this was really our roadmap for the year. And so we started with that scope and sequence work, and we talked a little bit about creating interim assessments that were common among grade levels for both ELA and math. We talked about the physical calendaring of that and putting that out for the year so that we knew what our focus was and we could remain true to that. We calendared those interim assessments, and then we began giving them. And so over the next few slides, you're going to start to see some of the results of those interims. We also started some data meetings, and we shared a bit of information with you on those. Those were typically 2-hour meetings, and we're still holding those with teams to talk about the results of those interim assessments. We have a couple staff members here tonight to speak a little bit more about that to you and their experience with those. And then step 6 really is about Justin and I getting into classrooms and giving teachers feedback and really highlighting the great work that's going on and then encouraging some growth in those areas. So could you go to the next slide? Thank you. So I'm going to talk just briefly about these 2 slides, and then I'd like for Kayla and Amy to come up here one at a time and share a little bit about their experience. But as you can see on these bar graphs, we've given about 3 assessments in the area of math, and I think the growth is speaking pretty highly for several of these grade levels, and it's really exciting to see that growth in an atypical year. Our focus has been this is a year just like any other, and we're going to treat it that way. So we control the controllables. We had control over the assessments that we created. We had control over the instruction, and so I'm really proud of the work that our teachers and staff members have put into the school year. If you go to the next slide, you're going to see the impact of ELA. Here you'll notice that we've given 2 assessments. A third interim assessment will probably take place this spring for several of these grade levels, but you can see in each grade, starting with first and then ending up through 6th, the growth that these grade levels have experienced. And then I forgot to speak to the overall growth. We saw 10% overall growth of our students in ELA. Could you please go back to the math one? I'm sorry. I'd just like to highlight the overall K6 average. You can see that's about it's about 19% there. And then the 3-6 average is about 15%. So really exciting growth. That's a lot of growth for kids. And so I just wanted to, again, give Kayla Spohr and Amy Palmore a chance to kind of speak a little bit to those data meetings feedback. So I'll take a couple minutes to let them talk to you.
Hello. I teach first grade, so I just want you to look at that column real quick. And that's what I'm going to be speaking on.
Huge growth, yes.
Yes. Okay, so when I was first asked to speak on behalf of our first grader success, I was a little hesitant. It's been such a weird year. I didn't know how I was supposed to know why they showed so much growth. Was it because we came back to school in person? Was it our instruction strategies that have aligned with our curriculum? Or was it because of this new data process that we put into place? I believe it was a combination of all of those things, especially because our new process is continually building on everything we teach. The jump in success is amazing, and I really give credit to my team for adopting and adapting to this new process. Analyzing our data this year has been really good for my team. We're a diverse group of a veteran teacher, a teacher this is her first year teaching first grade, and then a third and a fourth year teacher. I've taught first grade for 4 years, and I feel like I'm just starting to figure it out. I'm starting to feel confident in the first grade standards and how to teach them. Part of me wonders if we had this data process my first year, if that feeling would have come a lot sooner. Learning the standards and prioritizing them, writing scope and sequence, and planning what standards we need to teach first, thinking of all their misconceptions they could have, and writing these interims have all contributed to the success of first grade. Writing an interim is a process. First, we have to know what standard we want to assess. Then we write the questions that align with that standard. Then we think of all the ways a first grader might interpret the question and any misconceptions they might have. By doing this, we know what to monitor for when we teach. I'm not sure anyone on my team has ever written an assessment this way. It's not just the benchmark from a curriculum. It's carefully selected and scrutinized questions that only ask the things we want the first graders to show us. After the students take the interim, then we correct it. But this correction is more than just right or wrong. It's what are they missing? What's their misconception? What do they still need? For example, on a story problem, maybe a student drew a picture correctly, got the right answer, but their equation was set up wrong. So they understand the whole process and what to do. So during the next math lesson, it's just a quick check or remind them how to write an equation, and we would practice that in entry tasks every day. Entry tasks are a huge way that we monitor success. We do them every day, and they're set up to ask the questions that we need to practice based on our interim data. Our interims also build on the next one. We don't test a standard and never come back to it. We have questions on our interim now that we have learned at the beginning of the year. So based on the data you've seen, our first graders are crushing it. This process is a lot. It's hard, it's time consuming, and it requires a lot of collaboration. But it's very worth it because the graph speaks for itself. We've showed huge growth this year in math. This success could be contributed to many things, but I know that this process was a part of it. Do you have any questions?
I did see that you were killing it, yes. I mean, like I was like, first grade is destroying it.
For
Started the lowest, according to this graph, are the highest.
Yeah.
The other showed the same subject, basically, but I totally noticed first grade. Yep.
Thank you.
So did I. And once again, if it was appropriate to clap, I would clap for you.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
So my name's Amy Palmore, and I actually teach sixth grade at obviously Wahidas, teach ELA. And I do have to confess, Kayla, so you said after 4 years you feel like you're figuring things out. I giggle because this is my 22nd year, and I still don't think I have things figured out. But, you know, I have a list of many things that I feel that the data meetings have done for me personally. Many times I feel like an island, so to speak, because I'm the only one who teaches ELA for sixth grade. There's advantages to that and some disadvantages. But I think Wahidas is exceptionally fortunate to have two exceptionally strong instructional leaders in our building. So they have single-handedly guided this process. I can't speak for the other grade teams. I can truly only speak for sixth grade and what I've experienced, but there's been a lot of power in the time that Sandy and Justin have guided myself and a fellow teacher through this process. Our social studies teacher has participated in the process as well along with me. Since I've taken on the narrative aspect of things, she supported my efforts in informational through social studies content. And we've really needed that to help these kids be the most successful they can be. But just a few points, and then I'll tell a personal story. So with the data meetings, I do believe it's moving us away from what did I teach to actually what did the kids learn. That's been an interesting mind shift. We also have to ask ourselves what went wrong. We're a bit vulnerable in these moments, but I think there's a lot of respect in the room, a lot of guidance and support, so that vulnerability doesn't last for long. You know, asking ourselves again, was it a breakdown in the instructional process, possibly the learning process, or maybe oftentimes both? Specific questions are posed to guide the analysis as well. The interim is broken out question by question, very similar to what Kayla said. I honestly really do have a list. I won't continue on the list, but just to piggyback off of the power of these data meetings would be the feedback that Justin and Sandy provide on a regular basis. So we do get something similar. I'm sure everybody's familiar with it. It looks something like this, you know, that comes to us fairly immediately. And for me, selfishly, I appreciate it as soon as I can get it because I teach 8 classes throughout the day. So if I can get that within my first or second, you know, instructional opportunity with students, I can fix something, I can alter something. And that's typically what, you know, Justin and Sandy, they never come in a threatening way. The way that they have phrased things through, I assume, their own studies with what they've done, you know, learning how to give positive feedback and reflective questioning. It guides me as a teacher to go, is there a better way? So I have always appreciated that about both Sandy and Justin. So for instance, recently when we had a data meeting, we discovered that in 6th grade, students were having a very difficult time providing evidence from the text. So we agreed that, you know, during my 6-week plan, I would need to find more opportunities to provide mini lessons and guidance and practice and then reassess through exit slips or quizzes. Well, it just so happened one day about, gosh, maybe 2 weeks after this data meeting, Sandy stopped in and I was basically teaching exactly that through using whiteboards and giving students an opportunity to agree or disagree with a buddy, socially distant, of course, to decide if they really did have the evidence that they needed or not. And it was really powerful because Sandy had commented not only on every student being engaged in that activity, but it showed that she was completely part of the process when we had that initial meeting. And she was invested in what I was attempting to do with the students. She acknowledged not only the efforts that I was making, but saying, I know what you're working on. I know what the data said, and now I can acknowledge that you're using that data to drive your instruction. So I thought it was a very powerful opportunity. And then, you know, when you get feedback like that, I think it just makes you work harder. So that's really how it's impacted me. And I appreciate it. And I think it's shown with the kids as well. So thanks. Thank you. Oh, are there any questions? Any questions?
Great job. Can you go to, right there, yep. So the next part of these slides is you'll see a red line up here. We did some looking into how the data is presented from the state when we actually do get that information. And what I could gather was that right around the 60% mark is where they give the cut score for like the ESPA and things like that. They give it in a completely different way, like 2,600 number or whatever. But when it comes right down to it, that's about 60% of the tests that they got right. So we talked a lot about at the beginning of this year with our teachers, the mentality that we're going into this year with. Why are we going to expect anything less? This is their one shot at that grade, right? And so we better hold ourselves accountable to getting them to that place. And so if that's the bar that the state is setting us, we obviously want to go above that, but that's the bar we need to look at. So these numbers on here are how many kids did we have meet that 60% threshold at each grade level on each interim. And you can see the growth at each grade level has been pretty cool to look at. That red line represents where we've been. That's our average ESPA score 2 years ago. When we actually did get to take it, we had about 50% of our 3 through 6 students that passed, and so that's our goal. We want to beat that, right? One of the things we say at Wahitas is today we'll do it and tomorrow we'll do it better. So that's where we were. We want to do it better. And even though this has been a crazy year, you can see quite a few of our grades are above that bar already, and we're still working hard. So that's for math, and then if you can go down to the next. That's for ELA. This is our ELA progress. Some big gains as well. Took a little bit of a dip, one in interim 2 for first grade, but bounced right back up. You'll notice that there's no kindergarten scores on there. As you'll know, we started online, and kinder testing online we didn't go there. We didn't go there this fall. And then when they came back, they're running some other foundational reading skills tests, but this would have been a comprehension test. And with the limited amount of time we had, we put them on hold for just this year. And they wrote the test, but we didn't actually give them this year. We didn't feel it was quite the right timing. So again, this is, we've learned a lot through this process, and we're just trying to pay attention to everything, all the different variables that are coming at us so that we know what is working and what we need to improve on. But like you hopefully heard from the teachers, the momentum is there. We're building a lot of momentum, and the students are really benefiting from it, and we're excited to take our in-house assessment here next month and see what's going to happen. Any questions about those?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Why do you think such the struggle in 3rd and 4th grade?
In this ELA, especially right here? Or,
Yeah.
There's a couple different things. Still learning about the process itself and making sure our assessments really do line up. That's another reason why excited to actually take kind of a summative this year, even though the state's not having us do it. We're going to take, because we want to know, do our assessments match that, and are we going to see the same thing? There is a big jump in the reading expectations from 2nd to 3rd grade.
Oh, okay.
Up to 2nd grade, it's heavy on learning to read and just the phonemic awareness, phonics pieces of it, like just being able to decode. And then in 3rd grade, it really ramps up fast to comprehension. And so it's an area that we really need to concentrate on, making sure that, again, in 1st and 2nd grade, we're hitting that comprehension as well, so it's not like we throw them to the wolves in 3rd grade.
Right.
And so a lot of growth still needs to be made, but we're learning as we go. Yeah.
Great. This is really great. I'm loving it.
We'll kind of end here on things that we're proud of. And so before I share some of the pictures, we had a staff meeting this morning, and I just asked staff, what are you proud of this year? And some ideas that came up were the positivity that we've been able to maintain this year, the grit and determination to go through a really challenging year and to stick together. Some of the pictures that you're going to see up here include some of the sentence structure work that is a focus for our writing initiative that we've been on for about 3 years now. You'll see a couple pictures with charts and some writing. That's something that we call aggressive monitoring, and it's really knowing where kids are at during the lesson at all times. It's checking that skill level, finding out where they're succeeding and where they're making some mistakes, so that real-time feedback can happen in the moment, and kids can correct those mistakes and move on. The bottom picture highlights a team in particular, but several teams this year have engaged in this idea of teaching in front of each other during their prep or during some of the PLC work. And I think that really has contributed to the collective efficacy, the belief that we can do this this year, and we're going to do this. So these are simply just a few of the things that we're proud of. And again, thank you for coming to our school. We had a wonderful visit with you, and look forward to more in the future. So are there any questions that I can answer?
I do have another question.
Yes.
Do you guys still have an instructional coach at your campus?
We currently have one this year, and that position is being changed to a dean of students next year.
Okay.
To really bring back that house system and focus on some of the systems that we weren't able to implement this year.
It just seems like you and Justin are you're being coaches, which like seems great. Everything that I've heard is what my knowledge has been is from an instructional coach. So I think that's so great that your leadership is providing that to your teachers. The feedback and all the things that you guys are coaching and leading. So I think that's really great.
Lindsay, I do want to highlight, though, Tamar Lumsden is our instructional coach now. And
Okay.
she's been an integral part of this process this year. So she was involved in that scope and sequence work and a lot of that piece. So
Great. So with the dean of students, will then it just be you and Justin doing the coaching? And I mean, I say coaching, but what I really mean is to continue doing what you're doing, but without Tamar.
correct.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and give anybody an opportunity to comment on our visit, or if you have questions.
Always love to come to your campus. And thank you for the the interim that you did in January, was it? That we all came to at different times to your campus to get the updates. That was very helppful and informative. So I have started wanting to give every campus like a one word phrase, and in just that like typifies what the campus is doing. And not wanting to duplicate them. But these are just some of the words that I wrote down from your presentations. This is not my word, but some of the accurate words. Sometimes it's so difficult just to pick one word, which I wasn't quite sure what I was doing when I picked this idea this year. So these are some of the words that you guys said: power, growth, exceptional, team, positive, momentum, aggressive, and effective. Maybe not exactly in those phrasings. But the word that I actually want to give you, and Sandy and Justin, you're not going to be surprised, is urgency. You guys totally have a sense of urgency. There is never a stall time. Effectively using every tidbit of time that every person has, and that has filtered down to every level. And I think that that is amazing. All of your team has amazing talents, but the synergy that the two of you as leaders together create is so beneficial and amazing to see, and like the sparks that are flying out of your students and your campus is just amazing. So thank you so much. But your word is urgency.
Thank you, Jen. I'll take that one.
Okay, I think that every time we come there, we come out of there with a little more incentive, spark, excitement. And this information here that you've just given us has given me more of an insight of what the first meeting we had. So as one of your teachers spoke to us and said, "We want you here more," that was like a really great feeling to think that someone wants us there. They want us to come, not afraid for us to walk into a room. And I know all of your teachers would appreciate us. So I'm not going to just pick out the one, but that person was not afraid to say, "Where are you?" I know you're busy, but come in. And I think we get over this year. We start new next year, hopefully with everything back to some more normalcy. We can make a little more time because we can plan it. But I came out of there just feeling really great. I love the teamwork, what we saw in the classrooms. And did we go to the same classrooms as you? I'm not sure if we did. Just the interaction with the kids, it was fabulous. And the interaction of watching you, I've been with Justin before also, but when you get in and you just go right to the kids, it really is heartfelt. And that's where you see the improvement from the kids and the children, the students, and I thank you very much. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Sharon.
I always really like it when we visit your guys' school. It's just wonderful. I'm really appreciative of you two and your staff of what you have did this year. You haven't let the circumstances of this difficult year stop you guys at all. You've actually taken it, embraced it, challenged it, and run with it, and the numbers are showing. Very good job. I really appreciate it. And your willingness of all your staff to buy into all this too and work with it. And it reflects back down to the students too, and you could actually see it in the students coming back. So keep up the good work. It's wonderful.
Can I go? Can you end us, Mike? So I know I wasn't there, but I have a couple things to say about your guys' campus. I did come in January to the interim, or is that the right word? I'm not sure. Anyway, whenever. I came in, did a walk around your campus, and just listening to your presentation tonight, it has just reiterated this feeling that I get from you guys, which is it never feels like you're just keeping your head above water, which is so admirable because I feel like that's how I live my life. But I never get that feeling from you guys. It's like you're always leading and like striving for excellence. It's never just like, oh, we're just going to muddle through COVID and we'll figure things out when things are back to normal. Like just like Justin was saying in his presentation, like we're not just going to say, oh, we'll just settle for this. We're going to strive for greater. It's inspiring. And every time I've been to your guys' campus, I always leave feeling like these guys got it together. Like they're raising this future generation and they're going to be so successful, and it's really inspiring. And I will say, when it was time to make the decision to come back to school, your teachers who contacted me more than any other campus were very vocal about putting kids first and what they felt was their idea of what was most important, which was to have kids back in their classroom. So interpret that as you will, but I found that personally very inspiring that your teachers wanted kids and they felt like that was very important, and it was never hate mail. So yay for you guys.
Thank you, Lindsay.
No, well, that leaves very little for the grand finale. Great job, Sandy, Justin, and the Hawks that are listening tonight, because I hope you told them to listen to your presentation. All of you. I appreciate the fact that you are inclusive of all of that. You guys don't take the kudos and take them for yourself. You share them with the rest of your team, and that's to be admired. The visit, I don't think I went last year. I was trying to remember, and I didn't go last year. But just even hearing some of the stuff that, Jen mentioned some words. I think you mentioned it in your brief comments, the word grit. And I'm going to have to look to my right and say that it started over here. And it's continued. So there have been, if I tried, I think 2, you're the 3rd principal there after our now superintendent. 4th? Okay, I forgot one. I counted. Okay. But I think the foundation was set, and the urgency that you guys are going about your daily activities with is to be admired, and you guys are keeping the ultimate goal in front of you guys. And that to me is just a tribute to you all believing in your workforce, in your staff, and knowing that even in this most difficult year, our kids are important to you guys. Talk about, I think the word heartfelt was mentioned a while ago. It's palpable. I mean, you guys have created some relationships with your folks that I think contributes to the success that you guys are having. Is it perfect? Nothing is perfect, but even the areas of growth or opportunity, you recognize them. You mentioned it, that perhaps the visitation to all teachers equally, the times or whatever, is something you can work on. And the fact that you can be open about that, to me, personally says that your willingness to continue to grow, your willingness to continue to perfect the system is there. You guys talk about it, you discuss it, obviously. So I just want to thank you very much for the visit. I appreciate the interaction, the fact that you got some folks that aren't afraid to speak. Mr. Sonny Garza that called us out. I will mention his name because he mentioned us. Good for him. And like Sharon says, it's been, I am glad that it's getting back to some normalcy. I can't wait for it to be even better than what it is today. And I, for one, will make a more concerted effort to try to show up more often. But thank you, excellent visit. Appreciate the hard work that's going on there. The results are evident. Again, the acknowledgement that there's some work to do, and you guys is not shying away from that and just tackling it is very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
I appreciate the presentation tonight from the team from Wahidas. It doesn't seem possible that 22 years ago I was at Ludica with Mrs. Palmore. Kayla was probably getting ready to come to school. And I also appreciate the acknowledgement of the time that I spent at Wahidas, but also should let you know that the work that they're doing there now is so different than the work that I was engaged in, and so intentional and focused and really, really impressive. So it's nice to watch what the team is doing there. I think it's also a good reminder for us. We have talked a lot tonight for almost 2 hours now about a variety of topics. But it's exciting to talk about what really matters most, and that's the interactions between people like skilled people like Mrs. Palmore, Ms. Spohr, Mrs. Anderson, and Mr. Johnson with our students, because that's what really matters. And as a teaching and learning organization, we should celebrate every opportunity we have to look at student and staff success and recognize that, because that's the real work.
Yes. Wow, 2 hours into this already. Moving on to item D1. We have a monitoring report for EL 15. I will entertain a motion to accept the monitoring report for EL 15.
I move that we approve EL 15.
Okay, there's been a motion made to approve the monitoring report by Director Stevenson. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Director Schutte. Any further discussion?
Thank you for fixing the things that weren't there last time.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item E1, we have a first reading of a proposed change on EL4. And I would like the originator of this proposal to explain.
So in a conversation I had with Pete was we had a little bit of a conversation about performance considerations when possible. And I know that this was proposed quite some time ago and we had approved it. And I think it's time to remove this line.
The only question I had was, and just for the public, performance of an individual, of a school.
Performance considerations, the intent of this originally was like a bonus. That was the intent of this phrase, and I think that it is time to remove
I just wanted to clarify.
pay, yes, thank you, from this policy.
Is part of the performance pay or bonus pay part of the negotiations of the contracts and in the contracts?
It is part of that process, but this guidance, similar to the 80% guidance that exists in the policies, it just informs the negotiations. It doesn't set it up. So
Okay.
if this is not listed as a requirement, then it certainly could influence the conversations we have.
And that was a key part of why I felt like, I thought, oh, we could wait, but negotiations are coming up for multiple unions, and I think if we're gonna change it right now is the best, I mean, I know we can't change it tonight because it's a first reading, but right now is the best time to change that line with negotiations coming.
Okay, so I'd like a head nod if we're in agreement that this sentence, this item be removed from EL4. Okay, so at our next meeting, it will be in required approvals to be accepted. Moving on to item
Hold on.
F.
I just want to clarify something. I was not going to ask, but I might as well. Do we currently pay anyone on performance-based pay?
Yes, our administrative contracts all have a component related to performance pay.
So this would mean that goes away?
It would mean that it's not a requirement for the superintendent to be in compliance. It doesn't necessarily mean that it would go away. I think we would certainly want to have a conversation around the salary schedules and what that means for folks, but it doesn't mean it would necessarily go away. It just means that to be in compliance, we wouldn't have to follow that guidance.
Very good. Board of Directors will recess for about 2 minutes and go into executive session for 60 minutes to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a staff member and to discuss potential real estate purchase or lease. No action will be taken following the executive session. So we will reconvene at 8:57. To those that have been listening tonight, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And we'll be back in 60 minutes.